All right, what's going on, everybody? So this weekend, we got Chris Eubank Jr. versus Conor Benn. Now, this has probably been one of the most anticipated fights in boxing in a very long time, probably since Ryan Garcia versus Devin Haney. Now, this has been a rivalry for 35 years. The two families have had a rivalry for a very long time, and it's not even like this thing where they just hate each other because their fathers hate each other. No, they really dislike each other. So I'm going to be talking about some of the mind games going into this fight. I'm going to touch on the entire Chris Eubank Sr. and Chris Eubank Jr. situation that is very sad. And then I'll overall give my predictions to how I think this fight could go. Real quick, before I get into the video, 94% of you guys aren't subscribed. So if you like pro boxing, Misfits boxing, or UFC content, I post 2 to 4 times a week on this channel at least. So make sure you subscribe. I appreciate you. So the first thing that I want to touch on is this whole build up to this fight, because as we know, it has been very heated from what we've seen. They've been on Piers Morgan doing a back and forth. Conor Benn has told Chris Eubank that even your dad doesn't like you, which is devastating, which is very sad, by the way. I really wish they could just squash things before this fight so both families could be in the corners. I just feel like this will make the whole entire fight better overall, because a whole part of this fight is this family rivalry that's been going on for 35 years, and Chris Eubank Sr. not being in the corner just makes things a little bit off. Especially on the side of Chris Eubank. You got to imagine it must be weighing on his mind at least a little bit. He's fighting for his father's legacy, and supposedly his father doesn't even like him right now. I just think it's very sad because it just seems that Chris Eubank is over, Chris Eubank Sr. is over Chris Eubank Jr.'s like antics, because as we know, Conor Benn has been accused and supposedly proven to have performance-enhancing drugs in his body, which he had a suspension for, but he was trying to say that it was eggs. Hence why Chris Eubank Jr. slapped him with an egg, which was wild at the time. I didn't understand why at the time, but the entire egg contaminating thing, Jesus Christ, that was pretty genius, I'm not going to lie. But Chris Eubank Sr. is very serious about boxing and very serious about his etiquette. He's a straight-up gentleman. He just doesn't agree. He thought that the entire egg thing was a joke and an embarrassment to the family. So that just seems to be the overall theme or thoughts that Chris Eubank Sr. has on Chris Eubank Jr., which is very sad because that's your son. And what's even crazier, on Chris Eubank Sr.'s YouTube channel, he said he probably picked Conor Benn to win the fight. In a fight that is about the legacy of two families, he's going with the opposing side, at least on a prediction aspect. I don't think that he necessarily wants his son to lose the fight, but he's talked about how he's going to be weight drained to face Conor Benn. He's going down in weight classes, and yeah, Conor Benn's going up in weight classes also to make this fight happen. He says that's not a good fight for him, but he also says that he wants to see his son versus Canelo, which I think is very odd, to be honest. Because I know that the winner of this fight is set to face Canelo after the Terrence Crawford fight, but it wouldn't go well for either of them, in my opinion. If Chris Eubank Sr. doesn't think Jr. could beat Conor Benn, why does he think that him versus Canelo is a good idea? I just don't understand that at all. But I'm trying to not let this whole Chris Eubank Sr. thing determine my prediction, but I do think he's being real about the situation. Again, I don't think he's being petty picking against his son because they're not getting along right now. I think Chris Eubank Sr. takes boxing very seriously, and he just doesn't like this fight. He doesn't like the relationship with him and his son. And unfortunately, it's looking like he's just not going to be in the corner, even for the historical aspect of it or anything. It doesn't seem like he's going to be in the audience, the corner, or nothing. I just think that's crazy and sad. But I will say Chris Eubank does seem composed. He is very charismatic, just like his dad. He's been talking crap about Conor Benn. He's been talking crap about the promoters, Frank Warren and Eddie Hearn. He's been running all these press conferences. He has been doing very well with the promotion, borderline carrying the promotion, I would say. Conor Benn is kind of just like an angry, just an angry-ass motherfucker, to be honest. That's like his whole thing, which is a lot like his dad, too. That's the whole thing about this fight, too. I wish Senior was in the corner because they are spitting images of how their dads are. Temperament-wise, yeah, Junior is a bit more wild than Chris Eubank because he's very strict about his behavior. But they are very similar to their dads. That's why this fight is so interesting. It is probably, and this is the thing, inside the ring too, I think this is a 50-50 fight. I'll get to that in a second, but I'm saying this right now. I think this will be the best fight of the year. Obviously, there's going to be other contenders, but the beef, the history, the styles in the ring, and the real emotion going into this fight, this will be the best fight this year. I'm calling it. Now, how do I think this fight is going to go? This is a complicated one. I'm not going to lie. I'm not going to fence sit because that's not what I do on this channel, but I almost want to predict a majority draw. I don't think that is allowed on YouTube for predictions because I don't even think I've seen somebody predict a draw before, but this got it written all over it in my opinion. Because they both fight very emotionally, more so when the opponent is hurt for Chris Eubank Jr., but Conor Benn always fights emotionally. He is a very high-pressure fighter. He is very twitchy, throws a lot of feints, and he just keeps you uneasy the entire fight, and he closes distance extremely fast, especially when he has power in his hands. He rolls very well. He has nice head movement to throw the punches downstairs and upstairs for him to close the distance, being the shorter fighter, especially in the instance for this fight, which I'll get to. He loves his left hook. He has a very powerful left hook and a straight right hand. That's usually how he ends his fights. Now, there is one performance from Conor Benn to look to if you were Chris Eubank Jr. that was a bit suspect, and that was the Dobson fight for Conor Benn. Now, he was getting caught way too much in that fight. He was showing that he has some holes in his defense, and he gets a bit too aggressive at times. Now, this is a thing that Chris Eubank Jr. should prioritize because Chris Eubank Jr. is able to be on the back foot and has very nasty punches. He has a left hook that is very sneaky, so if you get over aggressive, he can clip you with it. He has a nasty uppercut. Like, he is able to wind up his uppercut basically from his knees and throw it all the way up with his long-ass arms. That is something that you got to look out for if you're Conor Benn, and that could be a very key punch in this fight that I could see dropping Conor Benn at some point if he gets too overeager. That's the key determining factor in this fight. Is Conor Benn going to be able to get inside without getting clipped? Or is Chris Eubank going to be able to time Conor Benn coming in? I do think there's going to be at least one point in this fight where Conor Benn gets rocked or dropped by an uppercut. If Conor Benn is able to get inside and be quicker than Chris Eubank, Eubank is in trouble, don't get me wrong, but the range of Chris Eubank just gives me a bit more of a blanket if I'm making a prediction. I'm sure you guys can see where this is going. But I do want to pick a draw. I'm not going to lie, I do want to pick a draw, but I'm not because I just feel like that's fence sitting. I just feel like the main thing about Conor Benn that is a strength in his fight is his explosiveness and his power at his weight class. My question is his power going to translate up a weight class? Is he going to be able to take damage from Chris Eubank if he lands flush? All of those things. So, because Conor Benn does like to rely on his reflexes, his head movement, his explosiveness, all that. I don't know if his explosiveness is going to be that different from Chris Eubank because, yeah, he's 35, but Chris Eubank has always had very fast hands, especially at his arm length. So the explosiveness difference isn't going to be that different. So if Conor Benn tries blitzing in emotionally, there is a very good chance he gets clipped by either that sneaky left hook or the uppercut by Chris Eubank. I just see it. I don't think, man, there definitely could be a finish. I'm not going to say I don't see it, but that would just be wild because I just see it. I said it before, I see it being a draw and then they fight again. But there is a real chance, and I think there is more of a chance that Chris Eubank hurts Conor Benn. Of course, there's a chance that Conor Benn hurts Chris Eubank. I just think just because of the range difference, the explosiveness, and the long arms of Chris Eubank, it's not the same thing as like, oh, it's a skinny versus built matchup. The built guy is going to have more power than the skinny guy. Nope, not Chris Eubank. So it's not like in a firefight, it's guaranteed for Conor Benn to win. That's probably the fight that he wants to fight. But if it's going to get technical, Chris Eubank is probably going to get it. And if Conor Benn isn't careful, being reckless, it could go to Chris Eubank also. So, yeah. So, overall, my prediction for this fight is going to be, I think that Chris Eubank is going to TKO Conor Benn in round 10. I just see it happening. I do want to say decision. If that is the case, I think it'll be a draw. But I just think that Conor Benn is going to get hurt because he gets caught more than he should. And then Chris Eubank is definitely not the guy that you want to get caught by. He has power in his hands and he's fast. So since the speed advantage isn't that difference, even though there's an age difference by a good amount, I think Chris Eubank is going to take this. I do think that the weight draining will be a difference, but I don't even know if there's a rehydration clause. If there is a rehydration, he should be fine. But if not, I could see it, but I don't know. I'm still gonna go Chris Eubank by TKO in round 10. Now, if I were to give keys to victory to each fighter for Conor Benn, I would tell him to be. I think aggressiveness could be good in this fight. Don't get me wrong, because of the age difference, and maybe there is an explosiveness difference. Just from my eye test, I don't see it personally. So if he's calculated with his aggression, I think he could hurt Chris Eubank, but I think he should target the body early. I think he should really rip into the body in the early rounds and try to wear down Chris Eubank and maybe take away some of that equalizing explosiveness. Make it almost like you want the uppercut to come, for you to step back and land that counter right hand. If you want to land to that, if you're Conor Benn, you definitely need to slip back and land a straight right hand. In this situation, you need to roll under all the punches. I don't think Chris Eubank is going to be as aggressive in the beginning of this fight, but there is a real chance they just go in swinging because how much they dislike each other. But at the end of the day, they're both some of the best in the world, so they're going to be smart with it. Maybe not Conor Benn, which could get him hurt, but yeah, for Conor Benn's sake, I say you just be a bit more calculated with your aggression, and there's a real chance you could hurt Chris Eubank. I just don't know if I can see that happening on his side of his execution. I can just imagine him saying, go, go, go the entire fight. But if you're Chris Eubank Jr., you definitely want to be on the counter-punching timing. Look for that uppercut. Look for that left hook as Conor Benn is getting reckless. I think that Chris Eubank should be able to outbox Conor Benn at range, so you should look to do that during the fight. And if there's a finish in front of you, take it. Don't take the Conor Benn route and search for the finish. You need to let the finish come to you if you're Chris Eubank. If you hurt Conor Benn, yeah, of course, show that emotional side that Chris Eubank has shown in the past, because Chris Eubank does get wild too, but it's usually when the opponent is hurt, and Conor Benn gets wild to hurt the opponent. There's a little bit of a difference there. So yeah, I'm picking Chris Eubank, but in my mind, this is a 50-50 fight, and I want to pick draw, but I'm not going to because that's boring. So yeah, man, please debate with me in the comments. If you disagree with any of my takes, let me know down below. I would love to argue about it. Not even argue, just debate. Just if you disagree, tell me why and how you think the fight is going to go. I would love to know. But that's all I had for you guys today. Next weekend is big. I'm going to be posting 6 times next week because there are 3 fights or 3 events that weekend. So 3 prediction videos, 3 instant reactions. I'm about to be busy as hell next week. Thank you guys for listening to me yap like usual. God bless every single one of you, and peace out.